By the early 8th century, the Maya civilization was at its peak. Cities sprawled across the dense jungles of Mesoamerica, teeming with people, culture, and monumental architecture. In fact, explorers from later centuries would look at these cities and marvel at their scale, suggesting that they could have only been built by aliens. But just 150 years later, something dramatic happened. The Maya, once the rulers of vast urban landscapes, faced one of the greatest collapses in human history. The civilization crumbled, leaving behind unanswered questions. What happened to the Maya, and why did their once thriving civilization fall so suddenly? Today, we're diving deep into the story of the Maya collapse, one of history's most enduring mysteries. The Maya of the classic period built towering cities like Tikal, Calakmul, and Copan, and created a vast network of trade and alliances that spanned the region. Their temples, palaces, and astronomical knowledge still astound us today. But by the 9th century, something shifted. Cities fell into ruin, alliances dissolved, and trade routes collapsed. This sudden downfall has baffled historians for centuries. The end of the classic Maya civilization is often called the Maya collapse. It wasn't a single event, but rather a series of cascading factors that led to the disintegration of once great city-states. By the 830s, the majestic cities of the southern lowlands had stopped constructing the towering temples and monumental buildings that had defined the era. Take the stelae, for example. These carved stone monuments are key to understanding Maya history, but they mostly tell the stories of god-kings and royal events, not the everyday life of common people. As for the books, many of them were destroyed, lost to time, or consumed by flames. What we do know is that by 910 AD, we see the last date carved on a stela in Itzimte. This marked the end of the classic period. But what caused the collapse? Historians generally agree that three major factors contributed to the collapse: warfare, environmental collapse, drought. Let's start with warfare. The Maya kings had been engaging in warfare since the pre-classic period, but by the 8th and 9th centuries, the intensity of these conflicts reached new levels. Entire cities were besieged, and the once beautiful temples were either destroyed or repurposed for military fortifications. Cities like Tikal, which had once had a population of 60,000 to 80,000, might have swelled to over 200,000 during these turbulent times as refugees poured in from the countryside. These wars, like the Tikal-Calakmul wars we discussed in our last episode, were devastating. They disrupted not just the ruling elites, but also the lives of everyday people who became caught in the crossfire. In some places, entire pyramids were left unfinished, and kings died without being properly buried. Society began to fracture. Now, as if the chaos of constant warfare wasn't enough, the Maya also faced an environmental collapse. The southern lowlands, especially the Yucatan Peninsula, are a difficult place to thrive. To build their massive cities, the Maya needed to clear large swaths of forest to fuel their construction projects and produce plaster for their temples. This deforestation led to soil erosion, which weakened their ability to grow food. But the final blow came in the form of drought. The Maya were incredibly skilled at managing water, building cisterns and aqueducts to collect and store rainwater. But even their ingenuity couldn't overcome the extreme droughts that hit between 800 and 1100 AD. Imagine a 40-year drought between 820 and 860. And then even worse, a 100-year drought that lasted from 1000 to 1100 AD. The soil was too dry, the crops failed, and the people began to starve. The once thriving cities, already weakened by constant warfare, now faced an agricultural disaster. Farmers struggled to grow enough food, and with each failed harvest, the anger towards the ruling elite grew. The kings, who were supposed to appease the gods and bring rain, were now blamed for failing to deliver. It's possible that this led to revolts against the once revered rulers, but the collapse of the southern cities didn't mean the end of the Maya. While the southern lowlands fell into ruin, the northern cities like Chichen Itza and Uxmal began to rise. The survivors of the collapse didn't vanish, they migrated north. By the 10th century, Chichen Itza had become a powerful political center, and it dominated trade routes, especially for salt, a crucial commodity. Chichen Itza adapted to the changing political landscape by shifting away from the traditional god-king system and adopting a more council-based form of governance. The Maya weren't defeated, they were simply evolving. But the Maya's struggle didn't end with the collapse of their southern cities. In the 16th century, the Spanish had arrived, bringing with them devastating diseases like smallpox and influenza. These diseases wiped out up to 90% of the population across Mesoamerica, including the Maya. The Spanish conquest of the Maya was drawn out, lasting nearly 2 centuries longer than the conquest of the Aztecs and the Incas. Resistance was fierce, especially in the jungle cities, where the Maya used guerrilla tactics to fight back. The final independent Maya city, Neuilly, didn't fall until 1697, when Spanish forces finally breached its defenses. Despite centuries of warfare, disease, and foreign conquest, the Maya civilization never truly disappeared. Today, there are over 7 million Maya living in the region, still speaking their ancient languages and practicing many of their traditional customs. The Maya have proven time and time again that their culture, like their civilization, can endure through the ages. Thank you for watching. Make sure you hit the like button and subscribe to the channel. Until the next revelation.